All righty. Okay, thank you for joining us for the community chat. We're so happy to have you here. We've got Stephen, Raquel, and Kaya, and of course we'll have some other folks joining us as we go along. But I just am so excited to welcome Nora Dunn. She is the professional hobo. She has been traveling since 2006 as a digital nomad. So we're talking about a woman who's got a world of experience literally a world of experience to share with us. 2006, 70 countries Nora has gone to, and she also shares a lot of her travel lifestyle guides on her website. Once again, that is The Professional Hobo. So Norma, you have taken your background as a financial planner and incorporated it with your love and passion for travel. And you have emerged as literally the expert in the digital nomad world for financial stability, traveling, and how to go about, traveling on an extended period of time, and also sharing with people so that they have and build that confidence to do the same thing and travel long term, enjoying not only saving money, but also enjoying some luxuries along the way without scrunting, okay? Which is what I call it when sometimes I'm eating peanut butter and jelly for a couple of days. So at any rate, tell us how it's done. You take it away, okay? We've got some questions. And I know, mic drop. And I know that we got some people in the audience who's going to have some questions, but you just get started on because I've listened to, as I said,
her up and let her go. See what
happens. I've listened to a lot of the podcasts that you have that you've shared, and I just love the fount of information that spews from you. So please, let's get it started, okay?
Somehow the word spew was just so evocative for me in that moment. I appreciate your descriptions thereof. Well, Siobhan, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. And Stephen, also a public thank you to you for introducing me to this community, because yeah, you guys are my people, very much so. I'm not yet 50, but I'm almost there. And I'm really, I have a large audience, obviously, after 17 years of being a content creator and one of the OG digital nomads, but my mission is to help people design their lifestyles and arrange their affairs so that they can travel long-term while working remotely. Now, I use the words while working remotely as the in brackets at the end, because I don't necessarily help people find remote jobs and careers, although I know people who can help, so I'm always a conduit thereof, but also because there are a variety of different people who might be pursuing a long-term travel lifestyle. Obviously now, because of the pandemic, there's millions, if not billions of people now who work remotely, of whom a percentage are going to want to try traveling long-term while working remotely. So obviously that is a group of people that I work with, but then I also work with people who are in I like to call it the re-engagement phases of their lifestyles, where they are ready to retire from whatever career they have had until that point, and they are ready to re-engage, sometimes by starting a new business or venture or becoming a freelancer, or perhaps they're just in their full-on retirement years. So there's what the common denominator between all of this is, though, is the lifestyle. And planning for the lifestyle, not only from I always start with a macro way of planning for the lifestyle, but then I also love getting into the nitty-gritty stuff, like bank accounts and ATM tips. I could do a whole seminar on ATM tips alone. I don't know why I have this thing about ATMs, but there's a thing. How to get your mail, various, how to find accommodation that is not going to break the bank. And Siobhan, like you said earlier, when I want lobster, I eat lobster, but I also don't spend a huge amount of money. So one of my little kind of shticks is I teach people how to travel full-time in a financially sustainable way. Now, financially sustainable travel is a term that I accidentally coined, and it doesn't have anything to do with environmental sustainability, although I'm a big proponent of that. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with budget travel, although I'm also a proponent of that. But financially sustainable travel hinges on 3 pillars. The first pillar is money in. So that might be earning money remotely, or it might be having passive income from investments, whatever the case may be. Here's the money that's coming in. The second pillar is making creative, conscious choices for how you spend your money when you're traveling. And there's a lot of different ways that you can spend a lot less than you might think you would need to spend in order to have a travel lifestyle. And then the third pillar is balancing the money in with the money out so you can sustain this lifestyle as long as you want. And this is where my former financial planner kicks in with all kinds of different bits of information, because it's different for everybody. Your financial situation, as well as your travel preferences and ideas and comfort levels and the things that are important to you, are going to dictate your style of travel and how you want to engage with the world around you. So it's different for everybody. Like, I don't publish travel budgets because no such thing exists for this lifestyle. It is a matter of finesse, and it's a matter of working with everybody on an individual level. So that's kind of how I roll. And I just love this lifestyle. I have been a digital nomad since 2006. And I have also iterated and reiterated in a lot of different ways in terms of how I live this lifestyle. I've traveled super fast. Like in 2010, I think I was like, the longest I stayed anywhere was 2.5 weeks. And on average, I was changing bed every 5 days. Yeah, Stephen, you're shaking your head, and with good reason. I mean, it almost killed me. I needed 6 months in a comatose state to recover from that, but I did it. You know, it was a thing. I've also traveled so slowly that it was virtually imperceptible. I mean, I've set up home bases in certain parts of the world that I've used as a base for exploration of that region or country or even continent for up to 2 years at a time. I spent a couple of years living on the Caribbean island of Grenada. I spent a couple of years living in Peru, and other periods, almost a couple of years in Australia. Those are probably my 3 longest bases, but I had other places where I based for a while. And I think the key thing here that is important to remember when you were designing this life and lifestyle is that there are no rules. You get to call the shots. You are designing this. You are the architect and engineer of this life and lifestyle, and you can change it as many times as you want along the way. This was not something that I learned gracefully. So this is why I'm emphasizing this point, because I don't know about you guys. I mean, I don't know, Siobhan, if you've experienced this, where it's like, I get into this rhythm and I'm like, this is how I travel, and this is the way to travel the long term. And then suddenly I want to change this. And then it's like, but I can't change this because this is how you travel long term. And so to be able to get out of our own way to allow the lifestyle to evolve is also very important. Is that a good enough start?
Yes, absolutely. A great start. And you were so right. That's one of the things that when people ask me about, how do I get started? I want to do, I see people doing this, but I'm not quite sure. I want to jump in that hard with all of this. And you know, what I tell folks is that this is an experience that they need to create for themselves and only for themselves. And everyone's path is going to be personal. Some people are going to jump in, you know, head first into all of this. Some people are going to put their toe in. But you were right. It does play, even if you're going to jump in head first, it does take at least a little bit of planning. And towards that end, we have one of our questions. I want to start first with somebody who's not in the audience. Dave said, because we're talking about, you know, getting started and everything. Dave said he's looked at your website and he says that you offer a plethora of tips. Top 4, what do you consider are the top tips for new digital nomads who are planning or starting, and what are the things that they need to be looking at?
I think that one of the greatest things that you can give yourself if you are planning this lifestyle is time. Mm-hmm. So I've regularly been approached by people who are interested perhaps in learning more. So they'll email me and they'll say, oh, I want to know about this lifestyle. I'm planning on doing this myself. I'm going to start next year. I'm like, great, you've got time now between now and next year. And then they would be, you know, express an interest in my consulting services. And then they would say, oh, but you know what, actually, no, I'm going to wait till it's closer to the time. I'm like, well, actually, the best time to plan is as far in advance as possible, because there's a lot of things to do. But there are, you know, like, for example, if you're selling everything, first of all, you got to decide how this is going to look. Are you going to sell everything, or are you going to, you know, use your home as collateral for rent home exchanges? At which point, what are you going to do with the valuables that you want to lock away? Are you going to sell some stuff? If you're selling everything, as I did in 2006, I gave myself 4 months to sell everything. And I did it in a very strategic process so that I could get, I mean, you're never going to get what you paid for everything that you try to sell, but so that I could at least try to extract the maximum value. Setting up a mailing address seems simple enough, but there is a process to, you know, like, you want to see the pieces of mail that come in, so then you can actually change the address, set up the proper virtual mail address, get all of that going as well. So the more time you can give yourself to implement the systems, you know, getting the right bank accounts so you're not going to get fleeced for withdrawal fees abroad, getting the right credit cards, and doing this before you start any kind of self-employed venture where your income might not be as high for future credit card applications, right? And getting the right cards for travel, make sure that, you know, if you want to collect points, that you've got all the points, right points, but also things like making sure there are no FX fees, foreign transaction fees.
Yes.
There's, you know, it's never too early to start making lists and to start researching.
There's a world of details. There's a world of details. Yes. Okay. Those of you in our gallery, please raise your hand if you'd like me to unmute you if you've got a question ready to go. If
please, not all at once.
I'm gonna go. Yeah. If not, while you're thinking, I'll go to one of them that has been submitted. Carla says she understands that your home base is in Toronto, but from one of your posts, because as a digital nomad member, people are all also getting to know you as well too. And she said you're currently in Florida. You're there to stay warm, and where are you going next after Florida?
Great questions. You know, so I do have a home base in Toronto. I was proverbially homeless for 12 years, where
home free. That's what I keep trying to tell people, to use the term home free.
All right, home free. I mean, I do call myself a hobo, right? So I mean, professional hobo. I like to make hobo look good, but you know, so anyway, I was home free for 12 years. And then in late 2018, I returned to Toronto because actually, and we can discuss this in more detail later if that's a direction people want to go in, but basically I burnt out from the lifestyle pretty hardcore. And I now understand why I did and how to prevent something like that from happening again. But the upshot was I did get a place in Toronto, and I still have that place, but I'm almost never there.
What do you do? What do you do with it when you're not there? Do you rent it out, like Airbnb it, which I know that's an option for some people to be able to do that with where they would have called a home base, or keep a home base that way and make income off of it. What do you do with your home base?
I perhaps even should, but I don't. I actually leave my place empty in my absence. And I know, it's a crime, but I'll tell you what, it's a crime that was born out of this burnout that I experienced before I returned to Toronto. After all of those years of living on other people's turf, and not having a place that I could call my own, and also having a slight cleanliness obsession. I didn't want someone to stay in my place. I just wanted to know that I could leave my place and it would be exactly as I left it when I returned, whenever I wanted to return to it. I also got the ultimate friends and family deal on the place that I'm renting. So it's it's unheard of for Toronto how much I pay, but it's not so much that I can afford to leave it and not do anything with it. However, as the years pass and I feel a little more secure about the place and a little bit less, compulsive about my stuff, I am considering doing something with the place. And the longer I stay away from Toronto, the more it makes sense for me to do something with the place. Now, it's a rental. I'm not convinced that I'd have to check the landlord to see if they would be amenable to me Airbnb-ing it, because of course there are regulations around that. But I could also look at having house sitters come in, or home exchangers come in. And home exchanging actually would make a lot of sense, because that would be basically, I'm like using my apartment as collateral, so then I can stay in other people's homes around the world for free. And it doesn't have to be a simultaneous exchange. It's the only form of, I've gotten free accommodation around the world. Like, I saved over $100,000 in my first 10 years abroad getting my accommodation for free. There's
Whoa.
5 different ways to get free accommodation. I literally wrote the book on it, but the only one I haven't personally done are home exchangers, because I never had a home to exchange. But there's a lot of different websites out there that will connect people who want to do home exchanges. So you don't actually have to find a simultaneous home exchange. That would be difficult to do, right? So then they have points-based systems and other ways to connect you with the places you want to stay in the countries you want to stay in, and then connect other people with your place. So I will eventually get over myself and my place enough to do that. But for now, it is empty, and I'm on the road. I'm in Florida because my best friend lives here. So I come to visit her usually a couple of times a year anyway. And I'm going to see Tony Robbins next week.
Oh my gosh, I just came across an excellent meme with a quote of his. You keep going, because I'm going to share. Oh, here it is. I found it, because that's how recently, in any moment, and I love it because it's so appropriate for digital nomads, particularly those of us in our group who, well, I've been doing it for, the past 3 years, but those who are starting, but it still applies even if you've been doing. In any moment, a decision you make can change the course of your life forever. Choose now and choose well, is what he said. And I just found that Tony Robbins quote. I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because I would have just posted it, on the group, instead of introducing it here. But that's an excellent tie-in there. You mentioned about I know that you've also been doing like house sitting, as well as some of the ways that you found to reduce costs. Tell us a little bit more about that. And by the way, Kaya, did I pronounce your name right? Kaya, she also, dropped in a very good comment about, as our group is getting larger, because now we're more than 1,000 members for Digital Nomads Beyond 50, yay! That she dropped in a really good idea of maybe even starting our own within the group house share or house sitting type of exchange, because then at least, and I think this is where you're going with this, is that at least you've kind of had some interaction with some of the people, as within the group. So that's an excellent suggestion. Getting back to you, Nora, tell us a little bit more about house sitting or sharing.
So house sitting was the second of these 5 different ways that I found to get free accommodation. And after a few years of the first way, which was work exchange, which is volunteering and trade for accommodation, which is amazing. I did the most bizarre and amazing things around the world with the most bizarre and amazing people. And, just in case anybody thinks that it requires you to be a dirtbag traveler to do gardening and sleep in tents or in dorms, I didn't do any of that. But I did do a lot of really bizarre and amazing things around the world. So I did that, and it was fantastic, but it was not super well suited to remote work as well, because if you're volunteering 25, 30 hours a week in exchange for your room and board, and then you're also working another 25, 30 hours a week, then suddenly for me, eventually it started to feel like a rat race. I didn't feel like there was any point in my being anywhere in the world, because I didn't feel like I had the energy to explore. And so I generally say to people, if you're on a gap year or a sabbatical, or you don't have, more than maybe 10 hours a week of obligations, like remote work obligations or something, then work exchange can be fantastic, because it immediately plugs you into an experience. that you would not otherwise be able to have anywhere in the world. And it's very, very culturally enriching, and it's fun, it's all the things. But again, I was trying to build a business, wasn't working so well. So the second form of free accommodation that I found was house sitting. And this was a perfect fit. First of all, you get to enjoy all the comforts of home. It's just somebody else's home. And it's a great symbiotic relationship. So, you know, the house sitter has a free place to stay and has the ability to experience local life and in a very local way. The homeowner gets great value because there's a security presence in their home while they're away. And often, you know, the plants will be taken care of, and usually there are pets involved as well. So, you know, the cost that they would have to pay to someone, you know, pay someone to check their mail and pay, you know, to kennel the dogs or whatever it is, far pays for itself in having a house sitter there. Now, I will say that not all house sitting gigs are created equal. So there's a lot of etiquette involved in terms of how to find the right gig for yourself. And, you know, everything from the location to responsibilities to amenities to expectations can vary dramatically. So there are a lot of websites out there, again, that can connect homeowners with house sitters, but I do have a lot of very specific recommendations for not only how you can get gigs, because usually there's a lot of demand for the good ones, but then also how to make sure that you and everyone else stay safe, that everyone's above board and has the right sets of expectations, and that you're going to find yourself in a situation that is good for you in terms of what it is that you want to experience at your destination. I had something else brilliant I wanted to say, and it left me.
I'm sure it will come back.
I do, you know, so now this is actually something that this is a form of free accommodation that serves us more mature folks very well, because homeowners are going to be a lot more willing to have somebody that they perceive to be a responsible adult or adults staying in their homes and taking care of their place, more so than a 20-something-year-old backpacker. Not to say that 20-something-year-old backpackers are not trustworthy or responsible or any of those things, but there is a perception that with age comes a little more maturity and a little more responsibility towards fiduciary responsibility towards people's stuff. So I have some readers. I remember I was in Peru and I had a couple of readers who were coming through, and they had, inspired by me, they had sold everything and they were traveling the world, and they were just very recently retired, like early retirees. And they were staying in Airbnbs everywhere that they went. And so one of the first things they said to me, they said, wow, you know, I mean, you keep talking about this lifestyle being financially sustainable. And they said, and for us it is, but man, these Airbnbs are expensive and you never know what you're going to get. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm into that. But have you tried house sitting? And they said, house sitting? Why, yes. And then we had the conversation. And 6 months later, they had their first few house sitting gigs, and it had become a new way of life for them. In fact, they were in such demand as house sitters that they made it a full-time lifestyle. They literally just went from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and then got invited back to the first place year after year after year. I mean, they're just like, they're in demand. They can't even satisfy all the requests for their services as house sitters. And for them, they love it because they get the comforts of home, and they get, you know, fur therapy for, you know, if they're taking care of pets. But then they also save all this money on accommodation, which is categorically your biggest expense when you travel.
Right.
So, yeah.
I have a question about the house sitting. Do almost all of them involve taking care of pets? And the other question is, when you're house sitting, because in my case, although I travel primarily solo, my daughter, who's 24, she very often comes and visits me where I happen to be. Is there, or is that something you can just negotiate? Do they typically say no guests while you're house sitting, or can you know, what's the situation regarding that?
The situation varies as much as the homeowners and house sitters do, which is to say a lot. But you can definitely work any arrangement you want out with the homeowners, for sure. So I remember one of my first house sitting gigs was in Hampshire in England. And I was in Australia at the time, but I knew I was going to be in Europe. And so we got in touch and we were communicating, and they said, look, we'd love to have you take care of the place, but there are 3 big dogs and it's a pretty big house. Are you sure you can do this on your own? And I said, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can do it on my own. But my mom is coming to Europe just before this gig, and we're going to be spending time in France together. Why don't I have her up to England with me and we can both take care of your house? And they said, fantastic. So I did part of the gig alone, and then my mom came and joined me, and all was well.
Excellent. Excellent.
I did another house sitting gig that was in Grenada, and it was right after I'd done the Ultimate Train Challenge. I just finished doing the world's longest navigable route by train, 25,000 kilometers in 30 days from Lisbon to Saigon, all by train. Kind of crazy, a lot of fun. I'm a nut for train travel. But anyway, I did that, and I was dating someone. I was dating someone at the time, and so I did this train trip, and then I flew to Grenada for the beginning of this house sitting gig, and he was supposed to join me. And then somewhere in, I don't know, while I was somewhere in Siberia, his situation changed and we broke up. So that was a gig where we were accepted as a couple, but suddenly I was doing it on my own. So of course, again, I had to get in touch with the homeowners and go, look, it's going to be just me now. Don't worry, this is fine. I've done this all, lots of times before. And they were pretty honest. They're like, wow, we normally prefer couples, but okay, no problem. And it was fine, and it worked out well.
Excellent.
So you can, and this is part of what I mean by, when you're talking about due diligence, there's a certain set of things that you can, and I highly recommend that you do prior to the gig. So everybody knows the terms and conditions, can I have visitors? Can we do this, that, and I find the more above board as a house sitter, the more above board you are with the homeowners, the more they'll appreciate it. So that it really just boils down to really radical open communication on both sides.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, folks who are in the gallery, more questions? Raise your hand.
Raquel's got her hand up, or she did anyway.
You got your hands up there? Oh, excellent. Thank you. Unmute. Yeah, there we go. Raquel.
Thanks, Siobhan. Thank you, Siobhan, for doing this. And hi, Nora. I'm a little bit starstruck because I've been following you for so long.
I totally understand.
I watch all the videos. I've gotten so many amazing tips from you on products and things to do and not to do. Anyway, so thank you for the wealth of information that you put out there. So my question is one that I don't know if anybody has an answer to. I've been doing some research, and it seems like everybody's kind of in the same boat when it comes to, so I'm a fellow Canadian, and I start my journey, I start my journey in February, and I'm currently at 50% sold on my belongings, so we're getting there.
Good.
I am giving up my phone because Canadian cell phones are ridiculously expensive. And I'm going to port my number to, like, I'm thinking probably Fongo. And so my question is around two-factor authentication. Like, that's something that's keeping me up at night. Like, what if I currently have 3 bank accounts and 3 credit cards? So if one dies, I've still got 2 backups. But what the hell do you do?
All right, I got you. I got you. This is my favorite thing to talk about. Listen, I'm an evangelist for this system. I have been using Fongo as Canada, just for context for everyone on this call, Canada is the most expensive country in the world for telecommunications. And yet Canadians have this umbilical desire to continue to pay these fees, even though they don't have to. It's so weird. Anyway, for the last 7 years, I've been using this system. And if you're not Canadian, you can adjust the system to your own needs, but it works so well for Canadians because we have this thing called Fongo. It's an app, but it's an app that allows you to make calls to and receive calls from Canada, from anywhere in the world, completely for free over Wi-Fi and data. So, and you can port your existing number to it. So it works as a phone number. All you need is Wi-Fi or data. It works anywhere in the world. My dad can call me It's a local call for him in Toronto. Yes, it's like Magic Jack, except I used Magic Jack for a small amount of time. Kaya just put that in there. And so it's a similar idea where you can have a phone number and all you need, it just works online over the internet. So then the only thing you need is a data connection, which I can get to in a minute. But Raquel, I want to answer your first question, which is two-factor authentication. A lot of these online phone numbers, like Fongo and Magic Jack and Hushed, and sometimes even not WhatsApp, but do not receive short codes. And this is one of the methods used to send text messages with authentication codes. Oh. Now, 7 years I've been using this. So I have always found a workaround. Most of the time the text actually comes in. But if it doesn't, there's always there's always a way to say, call me instead. And then you'll get a phone call with the code that you can plug in. Or sometimes you can just directly call them and say, my phone doesn't get authentication texts. Or you can use an app called Authy. Some two-factor authentication allows you to use these authenticator apps on your phone that generate a code for you. I have I also have bank accounts and credit cards and PayPal. I mean, I do everything online, and I've never not found a workaround to the two-factor authentication. So rest assured, Raquel, it will work. You just may have to, every once in a while, you just may not as seamlessly get that text message as you did before, but there's always a way to work it. Kaya's question is this only based in Canada, or can you port a number from the USA? No, Fongo is only for Canadian phone numbers. So in the USA, if you wanted to get rid of the telecommunications and use an online phone number like this, there's an app called Hushed. You do have to pay for it. You pay a small amount, but you can port your number to it. So you and then you pay like $7 a month or something to have that number. So that is one way to do it. You can get a Skype number, although Skype these days just seems so antiquated. I don't know why.
Yes.
Right, but you can buy a phone number with Skype and do that, and it works exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So then the second part to this. The second part to this is that then you need a data connection. So what I do for data, and this applies to everybody anywhere, and I have done my research on this. Please believe me when I say that this is the most flexible, low-cost option that exists out there. It's called FlexiRoam. And I have a special link, a referral link that I can give you that I believe gives you a little bit of a discount. And what it is, actually, I'll share something with you at the end that will get you that link with the discount. What it is an eSIM, if your phone is eSIM capable, or a physical SIM card that they'll mail you if you don't have eSIM capabilities. And it's a data card. So it just gives you data. No phone number, just data. And they have a lot of, it's not initially intuitive, and it doesn't initially look cheap if you don't know how to use it. I'm going to show you the secret right now on how to use it. They have local, regional, and global data plans. So the more granular you get with your data, if you want to buy a local data plan, like I want just data in Canada or in Ontario or whatever for 2 weeks, then you can do that. Or you can buy regional, like I just want data for North America for a month. Or you can go global, which works anywhere, at any time, all the time. So I like to keep it simple, because an answer to an earlier question, Siobhan, that I never answered was, where am I going next? I don't know. So I want to make sure that I have data and it's going to work anywhere. And I never know when I go somewhere how much data I'm going to use. So I don't want to have to go like, oh, I'm planning a trip to the States. Okay, so I think I'm going to use 2.5 gigs of data, so I'm going to buy that much. It's too much to worry about. So global data is first step. Mm-hmm. Second step is it's pay as you go. So when you get low on data, you just buy more. And you can buy the packages with various expiry dates. So the longer your expiry date is, the more the data will cost. So you can go with, like a week of data, and that will cost less than the same amount of data for a month or 6 months. But here's the deal. Again, I like to keep it simple. So I buy like 5 gigs with a 180-day expiry date. And if you look at the price online for that, it's like $130. I'm like, Nora, this isn't a good deal at all. But at least once a month, FlexRoam has a 70 to 80% off sale. That's when I buy it. So I'll buy the 5 gigs with a 180-day expiry date. It costs me on average 5 gigs. It's $26.99, I think is what I pay for 5 gigs of data. Works anywhere in the world. And if I'm coming up on an expiry date and I haven't used all my data, all I have to do is start a new package and my old data rolls over. So I'm always going to be able to use 100% of the data that I buy, and it always works everywhere. That's a very long way of talking about one of my favorite hacks. I hope I didn't put people to sleep.
I think everybody's going to want this FlexRoam.
Right? So
Everybody's want, because I had been using Google Fi, which was great, you know, because I get, you know, data upon landing. All I need to turn my phone on and off. But guess what? And I kept on seeing in some of these chats and some of the other groups, Google Fi cut me off. Google Fi cut me off. And I said, well, I've been traveling for 2.5 years and they haven't cut me off. Even when I was in Ecuador for 13 months, guess what? It happened this year. Luckily, it was just 2 days before I was coming back to the United States. And even when I spoke to customer service, I said, you know, what's the time frame that I don't know, they said. They don't tell us. So I was just looking for some other options other than the Google Fi, because I have to have a phone that is attached to my US phone number, because all of my business, my peripherals, handouts, business cards, and all of that has a business phone on there that is an internet. It's Sideline, basically, that app, and it's voice over internet. But as soon as Google started messing around with me, the Sideline started going sideways. And so I'm going to check out this, and I'm really going to look. But when before we post the video for the replay, please send me that link, your link, so that those who are interested, which I'm sure everybody will be, can sign up or at least check it out using your link. That would be awesome.
And I just put it in the chat.
Excellent, excellent, great, great.
So one of the, and probably the most common, if you're doing research on this, probably the most common data provider that you're going to find is 𝗟𝗪𝘡. And that is what a lot of people really like to use. It's got a really slick interface. It looks good, but and it's easy to use, but it is also way more expensive. And you're beholden to the local packages, right? You can only buy for a specific region, area, country. And if you don't use all the data, you lose it. So if you don't use it before it expires, it's gone. Whereas FlexRoam will always roll over your data as long as you kick in a new package before the expiration of the old one.
Now I have a mobile Wi-Fi device. Can I tie in FlexRoam to that mobile device instead of using their subscription?
I would say not. Most mobile Wi-Fi devices are beholden to their subscriptions. Like the ones that I know of are KeepGo and TEP Wireless, which is called something else now. And that, they require their own SIM cards. The only, and I think we may have had a conversation on one of the forums about this. I don't remember if it was on this one or a different Facebook group, but generally speaking, when it comes to data, like if you have to hook in more than one device, like if 2 people are traveling and you each have laptops and you want to hook into a data connection, then those mobile Wi-Fi hotspots work really great. Otherwise though, if it's just you and your laptop and your phone, I just make my phone a hotspot. And then I hook my laptop in. The only thing is you can only ever connect or tether one device to your phone. So the mobile hotspots are great if you need to hook in more than one device. Unfortunately, and KeepGo is the one that I use and have if I need a mobile Wi-Fi. But again, it's just a little bit more expensive than what I've been able to find with FlexRoam. I have this, I love them. Like I said, it's not intuitive. You got to kind of figure out the system and how it works. But once you're in and once you get it.
Excellent. Yeah, mine is 𝗂𝗚𝗚𝗜, and it has the built-in data that's a subscription. And then it also has a SIM card that I put in when I go into the country. I go with enough data so that I can get through the first couple of days and then pick up a SIM card that's local so that I can use it for both laptop and whatever. Kaya had a question that she wanted to bring up.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, great, excellent.
Hello, this is my first activity or first time participating online in the group, and want to thank you for organizing this. I'm like Nora, I'm also not yet 50, but very, very close. And I have spent a lot of time working overseas, especially teaching English and other subjects at the university level. I've spent time in Eastern Africa, most recently Central Europe, also in South Korea, which sadly a lot happened this week, in South Korea. But I just wanted to kind of clarify with you, Nora, as far as the two-factor, the 2FA, the program that you mentioned in America, not Magic Jack, because I use that now. But do you know a program that offers 2FA in America? Because that's, thank goodness, actually, I just let go of my Bank of America card. They transferred a really, really good travel card. And they transferred from Bank of America to another company. And I'm so happy because that's the only card that kind of forced me to do TFA. Only through text message, there wasn't an option by phone. And I'm really glad to let them go because Bank of America always seemed to be the nightmare for me. But I just wanted to ask you, as far as aside from Google and Skype and Magic Jack and all these others that a lot of people are familiar with, you mentioned one other that I didn't catch, but does that one provide 2FA or another?
You have to see that the service is called Hushed, H-U-S-H-E-D, Hushed. And I believe that, like all the other ones, they probably don't send short codes, but more and more of these 2FA services that banks and whatnot are using are moving away from short codes for this exact reason, which is why I've been able to live the last 7 years with a number that doesn't accept short codes, but I've been able to do two-factor authentication. So sometimes you will get that text and it'll be fine because they're sending it as a regular text as opposed to as a short code. It's unfortunately trial and error.
Okay.
So you'll just have to try it and see.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Great question. Great question. And we have from Sharon. Oh, it's to me only, Sharon? Not a question to the group. Okay. Okay, great. Who else has some more questions? Oh, she was having to sign off. Danette, how are you? So good to see you. Dallas Face, great to have you with us. Who else has some other questions? And Carol, it's great, even if you're not on camera. I know I wouldn't be surprised if you probably have a question that you'd like to share. You can pop it into chat as well too, but it's great to have you as well as Judith with us in the group. Anyone else have some other questions? If you want to think about it, I do have a couple of questions. Amy, this is not necessarily this is a general for the Q&A. Amy wanted a follow-up on my Medellin medical crisis. She wanted to know how my claim went. Okay, she wanted to know how my claim went because if you know about, some of the posts, I had a medical crisis in Medellin that landed me in the hospital for 5 days. And at the time that I posted, it was I think it was soon after all of this had happened. In fact, I had posted to let people know that I wasn't going to be chatting in the group while I was trying to survive and probably keep both of my kidneys from, permanent damage as a result of what turned out to be E. coli, by the way. But yeah, I was in the hospital for 5 days. It was remarkably inexpensive compared to being in the United United States. The hospital stay in and of itself was $1,250. Yeah, for 5 days in the hospital. And it was actually a very positive experience as under the circumstance. But in addition to my hospital stay, I also had to have some dental attention because basically at one point I was having a fever, very, very high fever. And I ended up sleepwalking, which is something I'd never done ever in my life. But there was a step down in my room, and apparently I did not step down. I fell down because literally I fell on my face like this, apparently, and I knocked myself out because it's not as though I like hit it and hurt and woke up. I just eventually just came to and wondered what the hell just happened. I am on the floor, basically. So I also had dental. I had to extend my stay. Both, I lost a ticket because I wasn't able to, stay longer. To leave when I should. I had to stay longer even after I was released from the hospital. I just wasn't physically able to take the trip to Ecuador that I had planned. And I also had to extend my guest house stay as well too. And so the total came up to $1,873. And I am very happy to say that the insurance company is covering it 100%. There is no deductible. There was no deductible with the plan that I put together for our co-live, co-work, which was part of that group plan. And so this was the first time that I actually, although I represent the insurance company, the travel medical, and I've gotten it for myself several times, this is the first time I ever had a claim. So I was watching very closely to see, because none of my other clients as well who had gotten their insurance actually had to have a claim. So I was watching it very closely to see, how this was all going to pan out. And I did not make a point of the fact that, that I'm a producer as well for that insurance company, which is IMG. So I really don't think that they connected my claim with being a producer kind of representative. So I don't think that had any influence. I just think that really and truly they follow through on without any issue. So that's the follow-up on my medical crises there. So while I was talking, any other questions come up for Nora, please?
Actually, Siobhan, I have a question for you. Having been through that experience, do you have any advice for someone in terms of how to make a successful insurance claim?
Successful, I'm a detailed oriented person by nature, but I would have to say that putting together the claim even exhausted me. I literally, you have 90 days from the beginning of the incident, which was the 25th of June. You have 90 days from the beginning of the incident to the time that you need to get all your paperwork in and your claim. And I'm so glad that I waited until I was feeling somewhat good, because I was taking photographs of all of my invoices, dropping them into a Word document. It was like 5 pages of claim. And one thing I also learned as a result, and this, once again, this puts IMG in a very positive light, in the sense that I got everything in I was skidding on the edge of my heels with getting my claim in on time and to that 90-day. And then about a month ago, they usually take, it said, about 45 days, or they have up to 45 days to respond to your claim. And I got my response, email saying, okay, this is all of the stuff that we're looking at paying you. And I noticed that the hotel, the guest house, although I had put both of the information, the receipts and the information for the plane ticket that I had to lose, it was non-refundable, as well as the extended stay. I had put that in, I'd submitted that, but I noticed that it wasn't in the itemized list that they're saying, this is what we're looking at paying you. So I called them up to find out what the deal was. And once again, the devil is in the details, as they say, because I thought, well, the hotel and the plane trip that had been canceled was a part of me being ill. So I bundled it in under the claim titled medical dental. And that's when I called up, that was when I found out that those two items, which came almost to $300, should have been on a separate claim form. That was the claim form for basically trip interruption. That's what it was. And so that same day, the woman who I spoke to on the phone, she says, use my name, let them know that, point out the fact that you just didn't know that it was supposed to be in this form. And they're still, even though it was past the date, they're still going to include it in my payout. So yeah, the devil is in it's you have to feel well. You have to feel well and have the energy to put together. But it's what you got to do to get what you need back. And that is, you want your money. As compared to, I think it was my claim with for 4 weeks, it was $114 for, it's age-based. So some of us in the co-live, co-work, the amount was a little bit less, and some it was a little bit more. In my situation, it was $114 for 4 weeks, and getting back $1,800+ I think was a pretty good return on that investment. I will never ever travel without travel medical insurance. So okay, off of my soapbox now.
No, this is really important. This is the kind of stuff that we need to know. And this is the kind of stuff that you need to know before excuse my language, before the shit hits the fan. It's really important. Like, for example, one of the things that, you got to know your policy inside and out. You have to know what it covers and how it covers it. So you can actually do the things that you did, Siobhan, in terms of putting together all the evidence that you would need, and taking the notes and being meticulous about your stuff. The other thing too is, like, before you seek any kind of medical attention, you have to call the insurance company. A lot of people wouldn't think to do that, but they do. It's one of many loopholes that they have to get out of paying you if you go to the wrong place.
Well, luckily, IMG does not require that. They do. Okay, they don't require it. They didn't. It was about 2 weeks after I was released from the hospital that I sent a message to IMG saying, this is my situation. I had a claim. I was in the hospital, and there was no fine print about having to because that's wicked. I'm sorry. If an insurance company requires you, especially in the state that I was in, to notify them before, I literally, the guest house staff were the ones who came to my door, and they saw, I didn't even know that I had caked blood on the side of my face. I was so sick. I hadn't even looked at myself and realized I had nearly bit through my lower lip. That's how out of it I was. And they're the ones who came to the door and said, you need to go to the hospital. I said, I think it's only just bad GI. No. You need to go in the hospital. And my doctor said in the hospital, he said, if they had not gotten me in there when they did, I could have been left with permanent kidney damage. My level of dehydration was that high. So, yeah. And let's see, any other questions? Because
Stephen's got a question.
Oh, thank you. Okay, Stephen, go ahead.
So this is going in a completely different direction.
Good.
No, so I'm planning to start my journey probably next June, as soon as I recover from having the surgery on my second knee. My tentative plan at this point is to spend the second half of 2023 in Southeast Asia, and then my spouse will, and then I'll go to South America, and my spouse will join me in South America. We're going to spend the next year kicking around South America. And what I'm wondering is, when I start, I'd like to go somewhere in Southeast Asia where I can just sort of, for a month, where I can just kind of relax and also just sort of like get accustomed to, being in Southeast Asia instead of Buffalo. and I'm wondering if you have any suggestions or recommendations on where to go.
Don't start in Bangkok.
I wasn't.
Explanation, please.
I feel like there's a story to this, don't you?
Yes.
That was
One
my
night
first
in
port of entry.
Bangkok and the frozen
Yeah,
song tumble.
right? All the songs. Yeah,
Yes.
it's true. They're written for a reason. It is. Listen, Bangkok was I say that because Bangkok was my first port of entry in like 2008 to Southeast Asia. And I had a few days there, and the culture shock was pretty extraordinary. I mean, I had spent the previous 6 months living in Hawaii, so in this tiny little island that was, and then I went to like Bangkok, and it was overwhelming in every way. It was polluted, it was crowded, it was noisy. There were people who were, ripping me off. I didn't speak the language, I didn't understand. Like, I was just overwhelmed at every possible the smells. I mean, good, bad, and everything in between. In the course of like 10 seconds, like it was all those things and more, and it was too much for me as a first place to go to in Southeast Asia. So I left with a very bad taste in my mouth for Bangkok that I realize now, a lot of years later, was inappropriate. It was just an emotional reaction to the place. So easy places to be. In terms of Southeast Asian countries, like if we just take Southeast Asia and we narrow it down to easy countries to visit, Thailand is going to be tops on that list. They make it very easy for people to travel throughout Thailand and to various areas they're in. Within Thailand, if you want to narrow it down to some regions, Chiang Mai is brilliant. I've been there a few times, and it's also very digital nomad friendly. If you're looking to do any kind of remote work, they have good infrastructure in terms of good internet connections, and there's also lots of places to rent for a month to 3 months. So that's great. If you go down to the south, there's a whole different vibe in the south, in the Thai islands. I spent a month in Koh Phangan, which is near Koh Samui. There's also people who stay in Phuket, Krabi, Koh Rami. Like, there's lots of different islands down there that you can choose depending on what kind of environments you like to be in. Like Koh Phangan as an island was, it's got two very distinct sides to the island. It's known for their full moon parties, so like every full moon, there's this gigantic beach party where people are drinking buckets of alcohol. Not my scene. But the other side of the island is like the healthy living side of the island. Like, you just throw a rock and you're either going to hit a yogashala or a vegan restaurant, or a meditation place. Like, it's one of those places. So yeah, it's the island of dichotomy. So there's lots of different things that you can get that way. Kaya just mentioned Vietnam, which was my second recommendation for Southeast Asian countries to visit that are fairly easy to get your feet wet with. I don't know if Kaya has specific recommendations in Vietnam. I spent a month in Hoi An, which was beautiful. It's a French colony, not a French colony. It's got the colonial architecture from back from the days in France. It's really beautiful. The food is good. But Hanoi up in the north is also beautiful and vibrant and still friendly. It's very much a city, but it's a little more manageable than some of the other bigger cities like Ho Chi Minh City or Bangkok. So those would probably be my top recommendations, but I'm far from an expert in Southeast Asian places and culture. Oh, Singapore is also a super easy place to be, but you're going to pay for it. It's very expensive, but it's killer. I mean, it's like a melting pot of all kinds of different places from around the world.
Thank you.
Excellent. We have more Maura just joined us. Maura, don't mean to put you on the spot here, but we're coming up to a little bit more than an hour, and I want to make sure that if somebody shows up with a question, that you have the opportunity to ask it. So did you have a question that you'd like to address? That's okay if you don't, but I just want to acknowledge that you're here and you might need to or want to have a question. We have a couple of comments here in the chat. Carol says that she hears that, what is it, Bangkok is very, Asia and Buffalo, New York are very similar. And also, I think she meant that as a joke, of course. That's Carol. Kaya said to everyone, also check the difference between actual medical insurance and travel medical companies that aren't necessarily insurance. That is very right. What I had with IMG was a travel medical policy. So it covered not only the medical aspects of the travel, but like if I had lost luggage or, you know, and all that type of stuff, or as I mentioned before, they also covered the fact that my trip was interrupted and my travel and my hotel was extended and I had to buy another ticket. So yes, there is a difference. There's travel medical, and there's medical that you can have while you're traveling. And the third is travel medical, which is a hybrid of the two. And if I will also drop in the show notes my video on travel medical, which is, or travel insurance, which is only like, 2 minutes and so, but it gives you a good overview and an understanding of the difference between the three of them. Also, let's see. I hear Asia, Vietnam. Oh, Kaya also says Vietnam has some good spots as well too. Did you want to mention some of those spots? I can unmute you. Yeah, there you go. Would you like to tell us some of those spots that you're referring to, Kaya, in Vietnam? Because I'm going to be in Southeast Asia myself at the beginning of next year. So I'm all ears, all ears.
So Nora actually mentioned the city. I've never been to Vietnam, but I've been collecting my research because as soon as I finish graduate school, I'm going to go overseas again. And she actually said the city that is on my radar if I ever go to Vietnam. So it was Hoi An.
Ah, okay. Any other, or should I go on? I still have some of the, go ahead.
I just dropped a link for a free gift for everybody who's on this call, which is a checklist of 10 things to do before you travel long term. If you're listening to this and not watching this, if you can't access the chat, it's just go to theprofessionalhobo.com/free gift. I have time for one more question and then I have to go. Okie dokie.
Question. We have two questions that I need to address, but they're not necessarily Nora questions. So I want to make sure you get any Nora questions out. Any additional Nora questions before she heads out? Oh, Nora, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we need to have a follow-up conversation about your possible involvement with our Portugal plans. So we will be talking to you
There's a good
again
teaser.
soon.
Plant that seed. Bing.
Bing, bing. So
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And those of you who are still on, I just will quickly go over. There are just two comments that people made questions. One was my reentry to Dallas and how that works, and the other one has to do with the Portugal plans for digital nomad next year. So let's all wave goodbye to dear Nora. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a great joy, and I hope to see you guys all around online and in the group. Have a good one.
We really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we just got a couple of questions to wrap up. And of course, if you have any questions about what I'm going to share, somebody asked what the re-entry to Dallas is like and how I prepare for that. And I'll just be really quick about that. This is the second year that I have come back to Dallas, which is where I lived for 30 years. I do not maintain a home here. And so, but I come back to Dallas starting in September, around typically the 1st of September. September is, I call it social September, and prep September for October, November, December, which is when I am pedal to the metal, as I am right now in the thick of it, working 6 days a week, and I have Sunday off, which is why we do this on Sunday afternoon, why we do these calls on Sunday afternoon, because the rest of the week I am working quite, it's an intense period of work for marketing for Medicare and affordable health care, Obamacare, during this period of time. So I'm in a Walmart, one of 2 Walmarts that I juggle for 6 days a week. And I'm telling you, you've heard the website, The People of Walmart. Yeah, it's real. It's a real thing. It is a real thing. It's really quite fascinating. I'm not even going to start on that because I could go on. But particularly the woman who I thought was walking naked, she was just happened to have a flesh-colored, and this is not Halloween. This was not Halloween. She was just happened to be wearing a neck to ankle flesh-colored bodysuit with nothing else on besides that. Okay, so re-entry typically in September, yes, it's when I get a chance to reconnect with people. We had a digital nomad Beyond 50 meetup, which was great in September. It's also when I'm doing all the prep work for the work that's coming up ahead that starts in October. And it's also when I see doctors. So I come into town and I have all of that scheduled. I start scheduling doctor's appointments as early as possible, like in June, in anticipation of September. Usually in this year, I spent September at a very good friends. I've known them for 32 years. They were in Croatia for the first 2 weeks of the time that I kind of house sit for the first time for my good friend Mary and Franco, and then they were back for the other 2 weeks that I was there at their home, and it's an ideal situation to be in. It was really nice because I was with friends and could be social and, could chat and so on and so forth. And then in October, I moved closer to a location that's ideal for the Walmarts that I work. And it's also ideal because the woman who I share she shares her home with me, which is another Mary, believe it or not, is also a good friend, but we're professionally linked because she's also an insurance agent who specializes in Medicare. So we both know what our day is kind of like, our typical day is kind of like. So it's really ideal staying with her October, November, December, because as social a person as I am, October, November, December, I am not very social because I'm having to be out there 6 days a week, and it can get exhausting. So it's nice to come home to someone who could say, how did it go? It went great. Or, hey, it went great. I got a bunch of new clients today or whatever, but also understands when you don't want to talk. But that is how I manage and I have a friend who I pick my car up from, and I keep, my car at her home. Her home is also my address, my mailing address. So I also get a package of mail and we go out to lunch and so on and so forth. So that's a lot what my reentry in the overview of. Of course, there's more details, but don't need to go to every little detail, but that's what reentry to Dallas is like, and for me, and I get to also hopefully see friends like I saw Carol, who was on here earlier. I saw her, she came to the Digital Nomad meetup, and I also saw, no, Danette, we still need to see each other. I haven't seen you since I've been back either. So, but that's what reentry is like. Very quickly, Kathy, that's in response to Sammy's question. Kathy asked about Portugal, and I heard you, you heard me mention about that. In very close to the final stages of making plans for our Digital Nomad Beyond 50, our second co-live, co-work, that's going to have a bit of a twist, a different layer to it than we did for the first Digital Nomad Beyond 50. And that extra layer is that the first week is going to be focused on the needs of those who are what I refer to as explorer digital nomads, those who are still in the process of planning to be digital nomads as compared to actually doing it. So that week is going to provide them with basically a retreat that allows them to start off the week not knowing how they're going to get started, when they're going to get started, and how to make it. And by the end, they leave with they each will have an individual personal path that they have created during that retreat to help them launch their digital nomad. Ideally, they will leave with the path for their first year as a digital nomad. And we're going to be pulling in a lot of different resources to support that goal, as well as have some fun as well, too. The other 2 weeks are going to be for people who are already digital nomads and those who are experienced. And it's an opportunity for them to have a social break in all of their social solo travel, and join other, hopefully, folks who are from members of the group, and form a community. So we'll have two communities going on. One will be a community of those who were new, and they will continue. Sorry, my mic just flipped over. And they will continue, we'll also continue with that community, and after the goal process of the retreat, we'll have continuing ongoing community meetings of the people who were in the retreat, just to check up on, how you're going, how you're doing with your plan, etc. And hopefully as people get together and do something like that together, they've created a support group for each other. And something very similar will probably happen with the co-live, co-work, because we've seen that we're still communicating. The folks who got together in Medellin, in fact, just this past week, we had a couple of chats on the WhatsApp that was just for that particular group. So that community is also continuing. And I love that. I mean, I love the fact that people are getting together and supporting each other, because this is really an amazing life to have. And as much support as I can give people so that they can have the opportunity to do that, it delights me. Literally, it delights me. So, okay. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Oh, Carol raised her hand. Okie dokie. Asked to unmute. Carol, did you unmute? Okay, there you go. You don't have to show yourself. I know you're kind of camera shy, but you can unmute so we can hear your voice.
Actually, if I had combed my hair, I wouldn't have minded. Getting better about that. Actually, I'm just saying yes, and it's been great keeping in touch with everyone since the first co-live, co-work event, and it's really nice to have a community. And I look forward to hearing more about the Portugal trip.
Oh, wow. You're going to join us again? Maybe that would be awesome, Carol.
I would like to. I just want to know in enough time so I can plan it with my work, Well,
I can at least give you the time frame.
Oh, okay.
It'll be the the Digital Nomad Beyond 50 Life Map Retreat, which you may have grown out of because you were at the CoLiveWork for 4 weeks, and you've already started to travel. That will start Sunday, I believe it's the 30th of April, and run through the following Sunday, that 7th. And what I'm looking at doing, it is going to be in Portugal, and frankly, both cities, I keep hearing wonderful things about Porto as well as Lisbon. And I'm trying to work out the logistics for at least that particular week to start in one of those cities. And then as a group, we'll travel to the other city with maybe like a field trip on the way, because it's only a 3-hour drive. And I'm looking at getting a private van service to take our group. We'll move from either Porto to Lisbon or Lisbon to Porto. And then the other folks for the CoLiveWork, who they're going to be here, they're going to be there, whichever location that we end up, they will take over, the how would you say, the explorers will leave, and the experienced nomads will take over hopefully in the most ideal situation, if I get my wish, we'll all be in one villa basically. And
nice.
So we'll have our own kitchen, just like we had with the Medellin place. We had our own kitchen, the living room was a shared living room, and everyone was just sharing a house, So that's what I'm working towards. But it will, and then, so if the 7th of May is when the Life Map retreat ends, that's also the same day that the folks will be flying in to start the 2 weeks at least. Some people might want to do 3 weeks, but at least as we're talking about it right now, it's going to be 2 weeks of the CoLiveWork for the experienced nomads. It's also Sunday, beginning on the Sunday and ending on a Sunday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sounds great. I hope to join you.
Let's see. Social anthropology. Yes, indeed. Walmart is a social anthropology in and of itself.
Yes.
Okay. And Kia, we're very happy. Thank you. She said Nora and Siobhan and the others for organizing this. We're happy to have you here. And Stephen said, thanks so much. Nora would have asked more questions, but it's all in your website somewhere. She does have an amazingly rich and full of information website, by the way. I highly recommend that not only do you go over and check it out, but you also subscribe, as I have, and maybe buy her a cup of coffee as well, too, as you'll see the link to do that. Great seeing you all again, Carol. And I do hope, Carol, as a part of our first digital nomad, CoLiveWork, it would be awesome for you to join us again, Carol. It would be wonderful to come full circle there.
I would certainly love to. I enjoyed the first one a great deal, and I'm only looking forward to more.
Yes, exactly. Okay, folks, if we don't have any other questions, we're going to wrap it up. And thank you all. This is our 3rd community chat. And the next one is already scheduled. It's going to be November 20th, and we are going to focus on Portugal by default, because my guest host, co-host will be Cindy Sheehan, as well as Kimberly Ann. And both of them are digital nomad members who recently moved to Portugal. Cindy in October, and Kimberly, I think she moved in September. So they're going to be coming and sharing with us their experience. And I'm really looking forward to that. And that's going to be scheduled it is scheduled for Sunday, the 20th of November, same time, 2:30 Central Time, USA. Okay, thanks again. Appreciate it. Take care.
So
Bye-bye.
much.